This is episode 10 with Lalla. Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for men who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of their lives. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our 10th episode here at Self-Made Man, and today we have an extremely valuable episode for everyone out there. You know, there is really nothing in life that will have more of an impact on your happiness, success, or general fulfillment than the quality of your relationship. And yet, finding that person, creating and sustaining an amazing relationship has proven to be one of the most difficult challenges that you and I and really the rest of humanity will face during our lives. And as is the case with any truly important subject matter, our educational system has once again chosen to completely skip over this topic without providing a single class on human dynamics, love, or relationships, which leaves you and I really to figure it out on our own. Well, the good news is that if you're willing to put in a little bit of thought and conscious effort into this topic and this process, it can definitely be figured out. And today I have my good friend and one of the smartest people on the planet when it comes to love and relationships with us, Lalla. Annie is actually who an incredible number of some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world turn to for wisdom and guidance when it comes to this part of their lives. And today she's going to tell you and I how to find the love of your life, and more importantly, how to keep that relationship growing into something more and more amazing every year for years to come. And if you're already in a relationship, we're going to talk about that as well, specifically when it comes to resolving conflicts in an incredibly healthy way that will actually strengthen your relationship and bring you closer. This is an unbelievably useful and important episode, so thank you so much for joining me. And on a side note, before we get started, I want to thank you for your support of this program. Last week, we passed the 100,000 download mark in our first 9 episodes, and that would not have been possible without you and your support, so thank you so much for that. And I would like to ask you for it one more time. Obviously, today's episode with Annie covers an extremely important topic that every single person you know could benefit from. So if you like what you hear, please pass it along so that we can continue to spread this information and to spread the mission here of Self-Made Man. So thank you again, and without further ado, here is Lalla. Welcome back to Self-Made Man, everybody. I have the fantastic pleasure of introducing you to one of my favorite people on the planet, Mrs. Lalla. Welcome to the show, Annie.
Thank you.
Very excited to have you here. You and I have gotten the opportunity to build a really cool relationship over the last 6 months, as you have been really serving as my love coach, if you will, my relationship coach, which has been an awesome and amazing privilege, and I'm so excited that you've agreed to come on and really share your wisdom with our audience. And so today's show is going to be, I think, extremely important for a couple of reasons, but primarily because there really isn't anything else in life that I can think of that has more of an impact on somebody's happiness, productivity, and quality of life than the relationship that they have, and whether it's an extraordinary one or maybe a toxic one.
Yeah.
And so your insights on this topic are going to be absolutely invaluable. And I would love it if you would start by sharing a little bit of your background and how you found yourself in this role with this amazing pool of knowledge that you've accumulated over the years on this topic.
Yeah, Mike. You know, it's one of those things that I've been doing since I was in high school. I mean, literally, I'd be there at recess talking with my girlfriend about some guy she had a crush on and how she should talk to him and how to cope with the fact that he ignored her. And it's just something that's been so natural since I was very young. I'd be in university and people would call me. I had friends in Norway who would call me in the middle of the night to help regulate some drama they were going through or help them through a conflict. It was so part of my life that I didn't realize it's something I could do professionally. Often with our superpowers, it's the thing that comes so easy to us. We never think, oh, this could be valuable.
You assume everybody else can do it as well.
Yeah, and then I just started realizing, and this is one of the ways you know your superpower, whenever the world comes to you consistently for a particular reason, that's your superpower. Mm. And so at some point, about 10 years ago, I just thought about what is the thing I would love to do for free forever? if I could just do it.
Mm.
And I realized it was to just sit with people and talk about their relationships with their partners, their family, their friends. Somehow I'd been unconsciously, unwittingly mapping the contours of the dynamic between two human beings my whole life. I mean, literally in university, my PhD for philosophy, which is what my degree's in, was on what is the essential nature of true love. And, that's just what I did my thesis on. And so I've kind of been, and I studied biology and philosophy and Buddhism, and all these, when I look back, were all in service of understanding the human mind, the human psyche, all the difficult questions of human relationship with their self and others. It wasn't until about 10 years ago that I realized, wow, I am schooling myself in a particular domain, and that is to help others navigate through the labyrinthine, difficult, complex space of how to relate to another human so that you create a relationship that's mutually nourishing. And, basically about 10 years ago, one of my friends who lived in New York said, Annie, you're the best coach I know. You need to I was an IT consultant in Europe. I used to consult for phone companies. I was a project manager in IT. But all I ever wanted to talk about with my colleagues was how's things going on in their relationship. So she just said, come to New York, because I was kind of done with the IT thing. She said, come to New York and just open a practice. Just say you're a relationship coach. And I was like, but don't I need to get a degree or become a coach or a therapist? And she's like, no, you just say you're a relationship coach and you'll start to get clients. I'll send them to you. And one by one, I started to get clients and I started to build my steam around that. And it's just really clear right now that this is my calling, what I was meant to do. And the most extraordinary people I admire in my life come to me when shit gets hectic, and I just seem to know what to do. So I've just taken ownership of that and developed it, continue to develop it. And I feel the most alive when I'm helping two people who feel disconnected get connected.
That's very cool. So when did you start really the coaching process as you do it today? Was that 10 years ago you've been doing? Okay, got it.
So formally, professionally getting paid. It's about 10 years now.
Very cool. Very cool. And today, you and I talked before the show a little bit about what is our goal for today's show going to be. And at the end of the day, I think we're all looking for the same thing, which is an amazing, epic, relationship. And there's going to be two categories or maybe three categories of people listening to this right now. One, they're not in a relationship and they're looking for the right person. So how do they find that person? And two, they might be in a relationship. And I think it's probably fair to say, no matter where you're at or what stage you're in, it can always be better. And so how can they work together as a couple to become, even closer and stronger and to have that, amazing dynamic that is almost magical. So, I think that would be our big goal today. And I'm really looking forward to just kind of hearing your input on that. And we'll totally let you take the steering wheel from here and the pedal. And I'm all ears.
Okay, great. So I guess for people who aren't in a relationship right now, you said, how do they find the right person? And that's one way to look at it. I want to introduce a different frame. Instead of looking for the right person, you want to look for the right feeling. You want to look for a particular quality of feeling that you have in their presence. And the feeling maps out like this. I feel fully loved and admired and appreciated exactly as I am. And they are standing for this person. When I'm around them, this person is standing for my development, my greatness, my freedom, and my actualization. And it kind of seems paradoxical. How can they love me exactly as I am and stand for a different version of me? But one of the ways you can look at the paradox is, I'll give an example of my young daughter. She's 2 years old. She started walking at 10 months. When she took her first step, she fumbled. She did 2 steps and then fumbled. And we all clapped. And in that moment, those 2 steps were, okay, quote unquote, imperfect compared to the way we walk. But they were exactly as they should be for her stage of development. So I fully accepted and loved where she was. And I knew in my vision of her future that she was going to be a wonderful, graceful walker, someday runner. So I held perfect where she was and held also at the same time a vision of her greatness without them being inconsistent. That's the frame to have when you're going into a romantic relationship for your partner and what you're looking for from them. So I don't think you fall in love with someone else. You fall in love with who you get to be around them. And who you get to be is loved as you are fully and fiercely stood for in your greatness. So they will refuse to let you play small in your life or be less than they know you could be. So you kind of have a coach and a champion and a fan leader pushing you towards a version of yourself that you yourself would be more proud of becoming. So if you're looking for not necessarily a person, you're looking for a feeling that you have around them, which is loved as you are and stood for in your greatness. Make sense?
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. How do you know if that person is... You've mentioned, you used an analogy before with the statue of David. Could you go through that really quick, because it's going to prompt a question from me.
Yeah.
That would be great.
One of the ways I look at relationship is both parties are carving each other based on their deep needs and wants. They carve each other into new versions of themselves. And so Eben, my husband, he fell in love / hired me to carve away all his insecurities, pathologies, delusions, old unproductive strategies that are keeping him back and shackling him from being his fully expressed greatest self. So the way I look at it is, he's a block of marble, an exquisite, magnificent block of marble. And my job, which he wants and encourages, is for me to carve away parts of the marble to reveal the David inside. And so I'm not trying to change him into someone else. I'm trying to remove what's not him, old insecurities, old pathologies, strategies that are obsolete. Remove those old wounds from his childhood so that he can actually be a freer, more greater, more productive human that's closer to his vision of extraordinary. And same for me. Now, the thing is, if I identify, when my husband sculpts me from the marble into David, if I identify as the block of marble, which is my status quo self, current Annie, then I'm going to feel like he's hurting me, jabbing me, stabbing me, that I'm dying into something else. And that's scary. If I identify as the future polished, amazing masterpiece of David, then I'm grateful for all the carving that's making me into this amazing piece of art. And so the trick is, in a relationship, is to find someone that you trust the carving of. You trust that they're carving you into greatness.
So that was my question, which to me, I'm listening to this and I completely understand what you're saying. At the same time, I'm getting all of these red flags. Like, how do you identify if the person who's helping you go through that carving process is healthy and building you into a better person, rather than maybe using that as an opportunity to project some of their unhealthy sides?
Excellent.
Right.
Excellent. And they're both always kind of there. Like, even with Eben, as he's trying to carve me into greatness, there's some of his crazy playing out on me that has to do with his wounds with his mother. Like, you have to always be astute and look for, you don't just fully go, okay, just carve me.
Right.
So there's got to be some filter on there. Here's how you discern what's carving you in the right direction versus chopping off your limbs. You ask yourself, the complaint or the request or the demand that your partner's putting on you in terms of transformation, if you were to take that on, that shift in behavior and being, would you become a version of yourself that you would admire more or less? So if my husband's asking me to be more on time because I'm always 10 minutes late for everything, and I'm complaining that he wants me to be different and why doesn't he love me as I am, and if I ask myself, okay, he wants me to be the kind of woman that's on time regularly and that people can rely on me and that my daughter can trust, is that a version of woman that I would admire more of myself? And if the answer is yes, it's going towards David.
Got it. Makes a ton of sense. That's a great filter to use. It's very definitive. There's really no gray left if you ask that question, as far as your answer goes. That's fantastic. So where do you go from there? And specifically, is there, you said in order to find this person, you're almost going through a process that almost every single entrepreneur does, and the rest of the world does, but on a much less conscious level. But entrepreneurs specifically have typically learned and been trained that they need to consciously focus on what they want and what they want to create, what they want to manifest in their life, whether it's the vision for their business, their product, their practice, whatever it may be. And you are talking about basically using that exact same strategy about, concerning your relationships, rather than going at it at a shotgun approach of, okay, well, I'm going to go date 20 people and just see if I get lucky. It's a much more conscious attraction, I think, method. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, my husband's a famous ex-dating coach, right? David D'Angelo. And he even now is clear that there's two sets of laws of physics in the romantic world. There's a set of law of physics, or how things go, if you want to date lots of women. There's a whole other law of physics and set of rules and requirements if you're in the game for finding your soulmate, the mother of your children, your long-term partner for life. There are different sets of rules. And you can use the first set of rules just to get good at dating. But if you try to use that ladder to find your soulmate game, you're going to fail. Because in the soulmate game, what you're looking for is not a girl who you can do status moves with, cocky, funny, get her to like you. That'll get you laid, or maybe even get her interested in you the first date. But to sustain the woman's interest at the level of her heart and her soul, she has to feel that you are looking for an opportunity to find a collaborative partner to create a life with. Collaborative, like two wings on one bird. Both wings have to be equal in dimension, equal in power. If either wing has more status or power than the other, the bird can't fly. And a lot of people don't realize that relationship is a deep collaborative dance that has a shared power. And I think that's, I don't know, for entrepreneurs, I guess if you're trying to find a co-CEO or someone to build your business with, when there's not a deep collaborative dance, you get all kinds of political drama. If you're going to have two leaders, they have to be in sync. And ultimately, someday, those two leaders might give birth to a child. And the child has to look up and see mommy and daddy are tight. They love each other. They're collaborative. They don't do things out of alignment with each other. And then that allows the child to grow up in a world where it doesn't have to fragment itself and go half what makes mommy happy, half what makes daddy happy. And those are two different things, so I have to be two different people, which causes lack of integration in the child's wholeness.
So if, from a practical standpoint now, if there are guys out there listening to this and they're single and they're interested in playing the soulmate game, what do they do? What are the first steps they take in order to find that person?
Okay, well, this might not be good news for them, but it's a whole new practice. So, and the practice, and I'm just mapping this from what I've learned from Eben and what he had to go through, they have to go through a practice of interacting with women. As they're dating, each woman they date is either the one or practice for the one. And whether an Olympic champion is doing their practice run in the morning or their actual Olympic game, you always bring your best. Okay? You don't do half-ass practices if you're an Olympic champion. So when you're practicing dating, whether she's the one or practice for the one, you've got to get in the habit of bringing your maximal attention, appreciation, love, support, probably something you're not used to doing when you're doing, oh, she's just the girl I'm dating. The way you treat just the girl I'm dating for now, she can feel the difference and you can feel the difference. And the problem with that is not so much her heart. The problem with that is you get practiced as a man in being half-assed in relationship. And then when you get the real one, all you know is half-assed behaviors that are not fully in line with future collaboration. So the practice is this. Is every woman you interact with, Starbucks barista, colleague at work, female client, your mom, your sister, whoever you're dating, you start to watch each woman and look for the ultimate of divine feminine. And I know that's such a cheesy woo-woo word, but like you look for what is great about woman at large through each woman so that you are able to find a deep appreciation of her particular flavor and brand of womanhood. So you're practicing appreciation for woman, feminine, the female, with each woman. And then you get good at when you actually find your mate, she will smell that you can see her in her glory and in her greatness. She doesn't have to fight for that recognition or that attention, because the magnificent high caliber woman that you want to be with for the rest of your life, she already knows she's the shit. And she's filtering. Do you know how amazing I am? Because I've been working on myself for years so that I could match my soulmate. And if you can't see me as magnificent, then you're not my mate. And so if a man doesn't have the practice at seeing a woman's magnificence, no matter who she is, and one of the ways I've been taught it in his last program was, if you could practice seeing every face of woman as an avatar, and behind it is some form of goddess, like what is amazing and worthy of appreciation in this woman. That practice has you develop skills that will attract the highest caliber woman out there for you.
Very cool. Very cool. And do you have any advice on what to do when you think that you might have found that person? Do or not do? How do you not screw it up, or is it impossible to screw it up if it's the right person? Kind of a deal.
On one level, I think it's, I kind of I have a little bit of I kind of go woo woo here, but I really believe true love is a rare esoteric experience, the highest possible dance a human being can engage in. Like there's nothing more transformational and developmental in terms of you becoming actualized more than falling in love with falling in love with the person that you're actually in love with. So first of all, having the audacity to believe that what people call a fairy tale is true. And when I say true, I don't mean happily ever after like Snow White. I mean, the work begins when you find her. It's not like it gets easy and happily ever after, but the work is like so worth it compared to the development and the joy and the ecstatic experience of this is the point of life. And I know I'm a girl and I sound like, oh, all girls say that. You can ask Eben, you can ask any man in love, and he'll tell you, this is the most important thing happening in my life, more than anything else. That's how big a deal it is. And if you don't feel that, then you're probably not in love. Another feature of it, for a man wondering if this is the one, you'll feel deep in your, whether you call it your soul or your deepest wisdom or your higher self, you'll feel this inescapable truth that there is no other woman that can match you the way you have always dreamt of being matched. And I mean physically, emotionally, and philosophically. And do not compromise on any of them. Eben's a pretty smart guy, and it was really hard for him to find a woman who could hang with him conversationally, philosophically, in all the domains. And he when I met him, he had given up on being in love, having kids, being married. He was like, fuck that. There's no woman out there. I'm just going to rotate. I'm just going to be, have a lot of women and get my different needs met. But she'll be rare. The more amazing you are as a man, the rarer she's going to be. But you have to believe that that's possible. Otherwise, you'll give up and settle early.
Right. How did you guys, or when did you guys know? Was it when you first met? Was it days? Was it weeks? What did that look like for y'all?
I knew within half an hour of watching him speak in a dusty tent at Burning Man. I just got to see him channel his most brilliant ideas. Mm-hmm. And I'd never seen a human talk at that level of sophistication and heart. And just, I didn't know a man could be like that. The metaphor I use, which is just funny, is like you can have amazing cars like Lamborghinis and Mercedes and DeLoreans and just all the fanciest cars you can think of. And men could be different kinds of cars. And then when I met Eben, he was like the spaceship Enterprise. He was like the galactic Enterprise. He was like a whole different species of vehicle. Mm. And when you meet the woman, she won't just be a cooler version of other women. A whole new category has to be created for her because it feels like a diminishment to even put her in the same category. She's like a different game. And I'm describing these kind of esoteric details because it's hard to know. But from the other side of being inside a love relationship, this is kind of how you know. Here's another thing you know. You will feel in your bones that no man that you have ever met will be able to love her better than you. You'll just know. With all her crazies, and she's going to have crazies, with all her wounds and crazies and insecurities, they're going to perfectly match what your superpowers are. And you're going to feel confident that you can love her better than anyone else, and anyone else who could love her better, you would step aside for. That's how much you love her, because she deserves the best.
Let's take an opportunity to go from there to talk about, that ideal person. And are there characteristics that someone should be looking for? For example, and you and I have talked about this before, and I would love to have you share your insights with this with everyone listening. From a personality type perspective, from a polarity perspective, is there an ideal match, for you out there based on who you are and versus they are, or not really? What do you have to feed back on that?
Well, I mean, there's theses about personality types. Eben's an INTP. I'm an INFP. So we're pretty much matched on all of them except the thinker feeler. And I feel like each relationship needs a thinker feeler. I don't know. I'm not saying it's a rule, but someone's got to hold down the feeling for it.
Right.
Right. And it's usually the woman. It doesn't always have to be the woman, but someone's got to be representing heart space. Otherwise, if they're just, I've met couples who are just two thinkers and they're amazing at jamming on intellectual and philosophical things, but they don't know how to feel together and no one's leading them. And then they usually don't last. So, I mean, that's the kind of Myers-Briggs story. But outside of that, in terms of what you're looking for, I see the two pieces that are most important to feel around your woman. You want to feel two things at once, and not all the time, but more often than not. You want to feel like she's a trampoline for you towards your dreams, your deepest aspirations, the biggest mission you have in your life. She recognizes their greatness. She stands for them. She knows and believes that you can accomplish them, and she's your trampoline for that, energetically, emotionally, conversationally. If no one else believes in you, she doesn't stop. So you want that, first of all, because you are the sum of all your dreams and your aspirations and your mission, your purpose. And what she falls in love with isn't just you, it's what you want to be. She's in love with what you want to be and who you want to be. So she's going to be the trampoline for that. So you need a trampoline for your dreams, and you need a refuge or a sanctuary to go to when you need support, when you're scared, when you don't know what to do. Every man needs a refuge and a sanctuary. And a lot of men don't realize that who you choose as a mate, one of her jobs and what she aspires to be, is the safest lap on which you can cry. When a woman can become the safest place for a man to take refuge, he will never leave her. The safest place on the earth. And so, you know, for a woman, this is how I coach women to become the right mate for a man. But for a man, I don't know if any men actually they may hold the trampoline part, but they don't yet have the humility to recognize that every hero needs a place to rest and needs a place to cry and needs a place to be petted and soothed and loved up so that they can go back into the world and get their shit done. And so looking for someone where you feel she could be my trampoline, really. She's not going to interfere or compromise or be envious of my success. She's standing for it. And she has the emotional, expansive capability of being able to hold my fear, my pain, my sadness, and not crumble. That's what you're looking for.
Very cool. Very cool. So let's assume that you've found that person, and or that, you know, for the people listening to this right now, they're already in a relationship, and I'm going to take a wild stab here that chances are the majority of them do not have relationships like that. Well, before I make that assumption, based on your experience, and you work with some pretty amazing people, but just in general, would you say that people who are in relationships or married right now, the majority of them have relationships like that already, or they do not, and it needs there's some opportunity for some real improvement?
In my surveying of relationship dynamics, I'd say 70 to 80% of them can have that, but don't, because they don't yet know how to use the trampoline or ask for sanctuary. So it's possible, and there's a willingness on the feminine. She may need some guidance on what it looks like. You know, not very many men actually say, I'm struggling right now with work. I need someone to talk to. Which just doing that alone would call forward her sanctuary. So it's like it's there waiting as a possibility, but with the right phraseology and approach, they could get it. Or the woman doesn't realize that her interrupting him in the middle of some thesis about his work occurs to him as a cutting off of his connection to his purpose. I mean, I used to do that. I would start talking about some random thing to do with work, and I'd interrupt with a question. And he finally sat me down and said, I want you to know when I'm speaking about these things, they're coming out raw and unfiltered. And when I get them interrupted, it feels like I've been taken off my game, like I'm on a motorcycle and you've just thrown me off. And him telling me that broke my heart. Then I realized, oh, these questions are interfering with his flow and his aliveness. And I really worked hard to just listen to him to completion. And then if I had feedback, to give it at the end. So it's the communication and feedback about where you're not feeling supported in a trampoline, where you're not feeling supported as a sanctuary, that can help shape your woman to become that, because most women want to be that and they just don't know how yet. And so loving, encouraging feedback can help shape that out of her.
So let's say along those lines, let's say you're talking to an audience of 10,000 guys right now, which we basically are.
Okay.
And we've addressed those who are in the audience who are single and looking for that person, and now let's address the ones who are in relationships. And it's obviously a very big audience, so there's going to be people in every place and position.
Okay.
What would you share with them that would put them on a track to build something, awesome? And something that you mentioned earlier was, I think, worth diving into again, which is that an amazing relationship is not found, it's built or created, basically. Mm-hmm. And so what can you share with them to help them go down that path and carve out something amazing?
I think if they start with a really simple private question in their soul, in their heart, am I willing to do the work it takes to make this relationship work? And they'll know the answer. They may not want to tell anyone the answer, but the answer to that question is going to govern their success at doing anything that I say after this. Because if you're just in a relationship because it's easy, convenient, or you have kids, and not because you love this person and you really want to make it work, it just doesn't, you can't implement any of these things. So the first thing is to get clear. Am I in? Am I really in? Once you get a yes to that, if you don't get a yes to that, you have to go down a different chute, which I can talk about in a minute. But if you do get a yes to that, then you have to realize part of building the great relationship that you want is being willing to ask for what you need instead of complain when you don't. Whether you complain externally, why don't you ever listen to me? Why don't you ever support me in my work? Versus internally, oh, she never fucking supports me in my work, or she's not encouraging me towards my dream. Internally or externally, the complaint is felt in the relationship. And every complaint has a commitment or a request behind it. So instead of she never supports me during my work, the request behind it is, hey, honey, I feel really loved and supported when I talk about an issue at work. You listen, you don't interrupt, and if an idea that comes to you that could be helpful, you share it with me, and you make it okay whatever I'm feeling. The humility it takes to ask instead of complain, and ask from a place of believing that she wants to help, will call forward in her the most loving part of her. So it's so easy to make it the other person's fault that you're not getting what you need, when most of the time we're not asking specifically with the loving humility and belief that they want to fulfill our need. We just assume, well, if they knew, can't they tell I need it? If they knew, they would just give it to me. People are dumb. I don't even realize that Eben needs something sometimes until he says it really explicitly. And then I'm like, oh, and once I get it, I'm in. I'm totally in. We assume people could tell our needs by when we get mad. But all they understand is, like, you have a puppy and you're trying to train the puppy to not pee on the rug. Mm-hmm. And if you beat it when it pees on the rug, it doesn't go, oh, don't pee on the rug. It goes, oh, don't pee. Don't pee. When we're mad at our partner, they don't often know why the hell we're mad at them. It's obvious to us, but they just get confused. There's 5 different things you can be mad at. It's much easier if you can express the need specifically and with the assumption the other person wants to fulfill it. You're going to get more progress. So that's one thing I recommend. This is how you, basically, I call this training your partner how to love you. We love other people the way we want to be loved. And we're different. I want to be loved with, I don't know, this particular thing, taking me out on adventures. That's my favorite thing. If Eben goes, we're going on an adventure, I'm like, yeah, I feel loved. If I tell Eben I'm going on an adventure, he gets contracted and weird, and he'd much rather say, I booked a massage for you and you don't have to see anybody. So I have to tune into what makes him feel nourished and loved, and offer him love in this bandwidth that is most nourishing to him, which takes some research. Our default is to love the other person the way we would be loved.
Right.
And so researching, like, what makes my partner light up and feel alive and supported, and do more of that, even if it's counterintuitive for you. You don't want to give someone a birthday present that you want instead of what they want.
So there's that one book out there, The 5 Love Languages.
Yep.
And I would assume that's a really good starting point for people to figure out how their partner receives love, basically, and how they receive it as well. I think that's unbelievably important to know for both people.
Yeah, 5 love languages: physical touch, praise and appreciation in words, quality time, gifts. What else is there?
Quality communication, acts of service.
Oh yeah, acts of service.
Mm.
So you could be busy hugging and snuggling up with your partner, and what they want is for you to pick up the dry cleaning, and that would make them feel more loved. And you're busy hugging them, and it's just kind of falling on dead ears. So really learning your partner's love languages and make it really an important part of your education. It's changed the game for so many friends of ours.
Well, what was interesting is, during my brief 2 years being married, that was something that my ex and I were not aware of until, after the marriage. But it was a huge issue for us. And essentially, we didn't have either love languages in common. Most people have two dominant ones. Mm-hmm. And we had 0 of them in common. And so whenever I would show love, it was not received on her end. And whenever she would show it, it was not received on mine. And so neither of us ever felt loved.
Right, yeah.
And it would have been nice to have some awareness around that, so it could have at least been identified and worked on. But without it, it just feels horrible for both people. And so we'll put that resource for you guys in the show notes as well. But really tiny, short book you can read in an hour or two. That's unbelievably important. It will make a huge difference in your life. So moving forward, mm-hmm. Are there different stages, or is there a pathway, if you will, for a couple to follow? Are there certain places where they should start? Are there levels plateaus maybe that they hit and that have to get through?
Yeah. So you get 9 to 12 months for free on the drugs. You're kind of on an ecstasy trip for 9 to 12 months.
The love hormones, if you will.
The love hormones. Exactly. You get the drugs for free, which helps you squint at all their crazies. Yeah, they do this thing, but it's okay, because you're just flushed with dopamine, oxytocin, all the good stuff. And so that's the point I noticed with couples between 9 and 12 months, give or take a couple months, that the shit hits the fan. They start to have drama, difficulty. What used to be okay is not okay anymore. And what's happening at that point is, well, first of all, let me just give you this thesis, this imago thesis that comes from the Catherine and Harville Hendricks. The whole imago therapy is the idea in relationships is you're born into the world. You have this God and goddess you call mom and dad, and they represent the first relationship you ever have. And so that imprints what love with the feminine and love with the masculine looks like. It gets imprinted in your bones. And so any interaction with a woman in the future is smeared with that first imprint with your mother, good and bad. Whether it's the barista, your grade 5 teacher, your first girlfriend, your wife, they all have smeared on them that imprint from your mother. And what we're doing when we fall in love, quote unquote, when we are attracted to someone, is we're actually finding the best looking, highest consciousness, most advanced, sophisticated version of our mother that we could find, so that we can play out the old story with our mom where we didn't feel loved in the ways that we didn't feel loved. And we all have those moments with our mom. And we try to play them out with this new partner, hoping we can get a happy ending this time.
Interesting.
Oh, mom never hugged me enough. Okay, that's a wound. Okay, I'm going to find a girl who probably doesn't hug me that much. So she's going to play the same script as mom did. But in this iteration, I'm going to get her to hug me, and I'm going to get the love I never got the first time, and I'm going to win the game of romance. That's what's actually driving our frustrations and our issues. We actually hire people to play out those scripts, and our attempt is to try to school them into loving us the way we want. So wait, your question was the stages. Okay, so after the 12 months, when all the drug hormones, love hormones wear off, what happens is you start to realize, oh, by the way, your romantic partner is your surrogate attachment figure. Mom and dad is the first attachment figure. Attachment figure is the person that you go to feel safe. When kids have a little teddy bear or a binky, that's a surrogate attachment figure. If mom's not around, they hug their binky or they hug their teddy bear. That's surrogate safety. Then as you get into relationships, they become your binky. They become your little attachment figure. But you don't know this. But that's why it feels so heartbreaking, terrifying, and abandoning when the person you love isn't present, isn't loving, or is disconnected from your needs. It's coded in your psyche, not consciously, but unconsciously, that I'm being abandoned or not loved by my parents, which is why it's so painful. And so after the 12 months, what happens is you start to realize the needs that you've always wanted to get met that never got met with your parents' dynamic aren't getting met here. And there's an expectation that they should be met because as a child, you expected that, and rightly so. But every parent is a set of collected fallibilities, and they love the best they can, but they bumble through it. And there's always ways that parents fail to love the kid. So the wound when your partner doesn't hug you isn't just because she doesn't hug you. It's because all of the times you never got hugged since you were 1 year old is lurking underneath your anger at her not hugging you. And so just understanding that is really helpful. Understanding that you're wanting your needs fulfilled by your attachment figure and that it feels like you're being abandoned by your parent helps you have some context for why it's so painful for you, why it's so hard to heal from. And so what do you do in that phase? You recognize, oh, we're going through what's called the power struggle, which every relationship goes through. What is the power struggle? The power struggle is over who's going to get their needs met, you or me. Because there's only room in this house for one set of needs. That's the narrative. And because we all started as kids, we assume our needs should get met, and we think that our partner is our parent unconsciously. So we just assume they should be meeting our needs. Mm-hmm. But they're feeling the same thing about you. I'm feeling scared and unsafe right now. Boyfriend, you're supposed to hug me and make me feel better. And you're like, why am I supposed to make you feel better? You should know how to feel better. You're a grown-up. So here's what you do at this stage. It's kind of a wake-up call where in order to get past the power struggle, each partner has to take on realizing this sad, unfortunate, but inescapable truth. Your partner is not here to fulfill your needs. Your partner is here to offer what they can in support of you being alive and comfortable, but they're not obligated. And if they feel a need, it's like a gift. If your partner fulfilling your need is treated like a gift instead of an entitlement, you'll get way more of it from them. But most of us engage with our partner as, well, I'm sad right now. Like, you should be doing this. There's a whole should, and they can feel your should, which is an obligation and a leverage, instead of, hey, I'm really feeling sad right now. It would mean a lot to you if you could just reach over and hug me and comfort me. That's a request that doesn't have any guilt or make wrong in it. Then they're more likely to do it. But if you're, why the hell aren't you doing X, Y, and Z? That would make me feel better. They can tell you that they're being taken for granted and assumed and entitled to that fulfillment. And some part of them knows, if I surrender here and give you your need being met, I'm keeping you small. I'm enabling you being insufficient to generate your own safety. So at the power struggle stage, what successful couples have to navigate is a loving container for your partner where you love them enough, but you don't enable them. And you say, hey, I'm going to hold space while you learn to generate safety for yourself. Growing up, becoming an adult means learning techniques, breathing techniques, visualization techniques, yoga, movement, dance. It's always a somatic technique. Learning techniques to generate calmness in your nervous system. It's called self-regulation of your nervous system. And you're not an adult until you learn how to do it. And most people are running around trying to get their partners to regulate them.
Interesting. So if you could, saying that's a really big, powerful statement to make, can you give more examples, or are there some very basic techniques that you could give to everyone listening right now that would be one way to bring that under control?
Yeah. So there's two techniques I use. It's very portable. It was taught to me by a trauma therapist. And this is what people who have PTSD from Vietnam War and stuff use. So it's very powerful, but it's very simple. So in the middle of a trigger or anger or distress, we often don't do this. So it takes some sort of practice to get into this habit. So I usually tell people to start at like a 3 or 4 out of 10 anger or distress, whatever feeling they happen to have. If they're irritated, but traffic's too slow, or they're late and the grocery checkout is too long, whatever. If you're at a 4 or 5 out of 10 irritation, not at 9 or 8, but 4 or 5, you close your eyes, and everyone could just try this right now. You just close your eyes, and you're going to do 5 breaths, and the exhale is around twice as long as the inhale. So you do a deep breath, and then you try to exhale twice as long as the inhale. And if you do this 5 times, I know it's really simple and short and ridiculous kind of, but something about it helps your nervous system feel like everything's okay. The breath is the fastest way to regulate your nervous system. And the 5 breaths with the double length exhale is the fastest version of that I found. You can always do 10 or 20, but 5 is the minimum. Then after my 5 breaths, so this is like I'm in the middle of a fight with Eben and I'm like crazy angry or super scared or upset. I go time out. He knows what I'm doing. I go time out. I close my eyes. I do my 5 breaths. And then I do something called my midline, which is I draw a dot in the middle of my head, 3-4 inches behind my forehead. So in the middle of my brain. Then I draw a dot in the middle of my belly, 3-4 inches behind my belly button. And I connect those 2 dots with a straight line. Then I close my eyes and I bring all my awareness, my consciousness, my attention, and my will, whatever you want to call it, my awareness, my attention. And I bring it gather it to the top dot as an energy force. And then I allow it to move down the line to the bottom dot and then turn around and come back up. And I cross the line 9 times. So it's called a midline. I cross it 9 times. And the trick is you go as fast as you need to along the line in order to stay on it. So as you're moving along the line, if you get distracted or the worry comes back or you fall off the line, it means you have to go a little bit faster. And there's no right pace. It's however fast you need to stay on the line. You do it 9 times.
And are you doing this in conjunction with the breathing or are these 2 separate?
2 separate things.
Okay.
5 breathings. And then it doesn't matter. Don't even worry about your breathing during the midline.
Okay.
Your purpose is to go up and down that line and notice the shifts in your body as you traverse the midline. Your body will start to relax, soften, and the energy of the attention or overwhelm or anger will dissipate. Sometimes I do 20 midlines if I'm supercharged. But between those 2 techniques, they've saved my life. Like I've literally been in a fight with Eben and said, pull the car over. And I get out and I squat on the sidewalk and I just do my breathing in my midline. And he's like, he thinks I'm a bit crazy, but he knows that what I'm doing is taking responsibility for my state instead of making him responsible for making me feel better.
So what, if you don't mind me asking, I mean, this is obviously personal, but what in the world do you guys, have conflict over? I think it's important for people to know that even a couple like you guys who are as skilled, at relationships as you are. Yeah.
I mean, and everything from, let's start at the smallest thing. So Eben is a super systematic thinker. So he will take his empty shaving can and put it in the middle of the front door so that you have to trip over it to get outside. And I'm like, I didn't understand why the hell he was doing this. So I would keep moving it, throwing in the garbage or putting it back where it's supposed to be. And he would keep getting upset until he explained to me, I'm putting the shaving can there so that when I wake up in the morning and I walk towards the door, I remember I have to order more shaving cream. If I don't do that, I will forget. And once I learned the genius behind his seemingly crazy behavior, I was like, oh, well, that's pretty genius. And so as much as I can, when I see something out of the way and like inappropriately placed, I go, Eben's doing some brilliant schematic for how to remember something. But it took 2 years for me to figure this out. He'd put the screwdriver in the middle of the kitchen table, like for no reason. And I'd be like, what the fuck? And I'd put it back in the drawer. And so those are the most kind of minuscule things. We fought like literally a proper fight over me hanging a towel on a doorknob because he thinks it's inefficient to dry the towel on a doorknob, which to me is just a place to hang it. But he can't get to the doorknob and it bothers him. And so like there's a rule in our house, don't hang anything on doorknobs, which is just ridiculous. But he says it's very inefficient if he has to run out of the room and there's a fire and there's this goddamn towel on the doorknob. So those are minuscule things. Bigger things would be, let's see, oh man, it could be over sex. I want sex and he doesn't feel like it. And he's like grumbling about the fact that I'm putting some sort of pressure. It could be that he feels uncomfortable about something sexual and let's try something new. And it's weirding him out. Like, I don't know, a blindfold. I'm really adventuresome and like explorative. I don't have a lot of hangups around sex. And Eben is a little more, hasn't quite gotten into all of that sometimes. And so when I just like pull out a blindfold or say, let's try something new, he's telling me like, okay, you got to go slow. You can't just like pull out all this gear. And so we fought over sex. We fought over food. Oh my God, he's obsessed with living forever. He takes, 30 pills a day, eats 2 green shakes, low fat, low sugar, everything's low, everything. And anytime I want to eat like a turkey sandwich or something, it's not even like I'm eating French fries. We used to have this like, don't you, he's like, we're in love. Don't you want to live forever with me? Like, don't you care about your life? And then I'd be like, I do, but I'm a woman. I need to try. I can't have the same thing every day. And so we fought over that for a while. And now he's kind of like realized that he can't make me eat green shakes, literally the same green shake every day, twice a day. I go crazy. So that's just kind of like an average spectrum of what we fight over.
So is there a way to use conflicts as an opportunity to come closer or grow stronger rather than walls go up and go further apart? What does that look like? How does that happen?
Well, you get curious. So we would just fight over things over the door because I thought it was stupid for me not hanging things, and he would think it's stupid that I'm hanging them. When I finally said, okay, can you tell me why you want me to not hang things on the door? And he explained in great detail why if there's an emergency and you're fumbling with the door, it's life or death. And I get that it's slightly paranoid, but he has a point. There are hooks we could hang the towels on. Once I got that the commitment behind his not hanging things on doors was something important, valuable, and could save our lives, I surrendered to it. Once I realized that his leaving things in the middle of the table or the living room was his way of remembering it, and the fact is I don't remember to order things because I don't do those things. So it was, once I see the genius in what he's doing, I don't have to fight about it anymore. Once he realized that my desire to be like more experimental or something in our sexual dynamic was me trying to bring adventure and newness to a 5-year-old relationship. You got to keep it alive. And once I realized that his resistance wasn't because he doesn't love me or doesn't find me attractive, it's because he grew up in a Christian family where like the word sex probably was taboo. And, if I could just go slower at a slower pace, what happens when you get into conflict and you unpack it, instead of standing on your ground, you get curious about the other person's experience. And you get that they're getting angry because there's a fear behind their anger. There's something that they're worried about. And if you get clear on what that is, you learn about a unique part of their genius that you otherwise would just think is wacky.
Very cool.
Yeah, you get curious about why they don't want it. And if you keep digging until you find some piece of wisdom and genius, then you respect them and it no longer becomes a fight.
So you're in this relationship, and let's just use you guys as an example again. Y'all have been married for how many years now?
I think 4, but we've been together 5, something like that.
So what's next? What does the next, 20, 30, 40 years look like?
Yeah, so we're still, by the way, the power struggle doesn't stop. You just get better and better at navigating it. So we still have like struggle over how much, we have a daughter, right? So my predilection is to help her tie her shoe a little more than he would stand back and let her do it. So I'm learning from him how to let her do it and only go in to help when she needs it. And so we're still power struggling over that, but we continually try to explain what's the motivation behind our intention and then educate each other. I think the point in love relationship is to educate each other and cross-train on your unique different geniuses instead of assuming the other person's crazy. It feels crazy until you understand why they do it. And then you get to see how brilliant their thesis is.
And that's actually a better segue into the question to get the train back on the tracks, because I was taking it off in a different direction. But you said that at the 12-month mark, the power struggle happens. And then you walked us through that. So what comes after that stage?
So first it's power struggle. And at that power struggle stage, it's very crucial. You either stay in the game and learn techniques to navigate the power struggle, or you bail. A lot of couples bail around anywhere between 9 to 15 months. Mm-hmm. So if I get a couple who are having drama and conflict around 9 to 15 months, I explain to them why, because they're confused. They're like, we were so in love. What's going on? It's the power struggle. And the power struggle, I think, is a test from reality, from the universe, from love at large, to say, do you really fucking love each other? Are you willing to do whatever it takes and figure your way out through this labyrinth here? And if you can, you have an access to the ambrosia, the heaven, the magnificent palace of true love. And if you don't, it's okay, but then this person's not the one. Because when you fall in love with the one, you can't leave. You just can't leave. I've gotten so mad at Eben. I've stomped around. I've plotted moving out. I've like, oh my God, is this the right person? And I stop, that lasts at max a day. But at the end of it, and he's gotten there too, by the way. Mm-hmm. At the end of it, I just can't find anywhere else to go because he just is indisputably the most extraordinary partner and man that I've ever met. And even when he pisses me the hell off, I realize the thing that he's doing to piss me off is perfectly sculpted by the universe to help me grow a muscle in an area that I currently don't have. And that's why I'm mad.
Totally makes sense. So let's say you make it through the power struggle.
So what you do is you just get faster. So, like stage fright, you get nervous when you go on stage. Everybody does. Even Anthony Robbins does, whatever. What happens is you do it more and more is the stage fright paralysis time gets shorter and shorter. With Eben, it's like 30 seconds right before he gets on a stage. He still gets it every time. He's done like 50 seminars. But it's still there. It just gets more manageable. So the power struggle's there between Eben every day. But we can sniff it out. I can smell it. I know how it goes down that road if I stand my ground and be a bitch about it. And I know how it goes if I get curious about what's going on for him. And he knows the same about me. So we get through the power struggle faster. We don't transcend means include. So to transcend the power struggle is it never goes away. You just get quicker and faster at navigating through it. And it takes up a 5-minute quibble instead of 2 hours of grumble. And so the next stage is becoming really fascinated and interested in how to be synchronized in your imagination and intelligence in the projects that you do in your life instead of at odds. So if he has a project he's working on for a seminar or a speech or even an email to someone important, he will come to me and go, I know this is going to be better after you read it and add to it. It becomes a phase where you just trust that anything you do alone is going to be better if you collaborate with your partner. And so you become project partners on everything. Like even if I have a client that I'm struggling with, I'll sit with him at dinner and I'll be like, I don't know how to deal with this client. They have this issue, and he'll give me some download that I would never have thought of that I can go and implement. And so you become collaboration partners on everything that you do. Obviously, he still does some things on his own, but if it's something important, he always comes to me to run it through my feminine psyche. And if something important to me, I start running it through. And you start to become like the two wings on one bird going in one direction.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very cool. That is a neat place to be in. And so, where do we go from here? What at that point is there any other critical piece to this relationship puzzle that people need to know, or are there other pieces of advice to where? Well, I can only assume that right now there's a lot of people listening to this who are in relationships that are not where they want them to be. They've probably had a dozen light bulbs go off, over the last 50 minutes here or so. What can they do? And they've decided, hey, this sounds really good. I've learned a lot. I can see how this will really help myself and my partner in our relationship. Where do they go from there? Where basically the spark has been lit or the match has been lit. How do they continue this process, and how do they involve their partner who may, not have heard this, to get them on board really?
Well, just like the best Olympic athletes in the world have coaches, whether it's, and I'm not saying it has to be me, but just getting someone in your life that supports you as a third eye. So you have blind spots, right? And then your partner can see your crazies, which are your blind spots, and they can reflect them back to you if you're willing. But couples at the system level, two people, have blind spots that they can't see and that are holding them back from the next stage of intimacy. So having a third person, friend, it could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be an actual therapist or a coach, it's priceless. Eben and I have people that support our relationship. Every quarter we go and hang with certain people and some coaches that call us on our crazies at the level of the relationship that we can't see. And so having that third pole highlight for you what the next step is really important. So I just think there's nothing wrong with your relationship. If you have a great relationship, having support as a therapist or a coach can only enhance it, and find someone that you really trust. The second thing is, one of the things I'm noticing with couples is there's an assumption that if they don't feel respected, honored, understood, which are all forms of feeling loved. Okay. So let's just call it feeling loved. Mm-hmm. If a person in a relationship is not feeling respected, honored, understood, or feeling loved, they have this assumption that it's the other person's fault. If they go, I'm not feeling loved right now, it's kind of got a harumph in it, like you're not doing your job. So the new phase of relationship savvy that I'm trying to train in my clients and in my teaching is taking radical responsibility in your own self for feeling loved around your mom, around your sister, around your partner. If you look at any one moment, you can find countless evidence, data points of how they love you. And you can find evidence and data points of how they're not loving you. But we tend to focus on the not loving. And we highlight them. And we pick on them. And I'm saying put the onus on yourself. When my mom's acting weird or Eben's acting like frustrated or not respectful, I have a bank in my brain where I put all the moments where he's exquisite to me, where he goes out of his way for me, where he does something that only someone who's in love with me could do. I store them in my bank of proof that Eben loves me day to day. Every day I find one. I store them in the bank. And then when shit gets hectic, when he's acting like an ass, I go to the bank and I withdraw it and I generate proof for myself that he's in love with me, even though right now it don't look like it. Like even while he's angry with me right now in the moment in the room, we're in a house that he helped create. We're in an environment and I have luxuries and opportunities in my life that I would never get unless he'd loved me. And I can ignore all those or I could get present to them. So taking responsibility for generating your feeling of being loved by that other person, the onus is on you, not them. Just like the onus is on you to feed yourself in the morning, and it's great if your partner makes you breakfast, but you don't expect them to make you breakfast. It's a gift. And so when they love you, it's a gift. When they don't, your lack of imagination and intelligence and pattern recognition is what's running the show. So that's just a trick that I would love people to generate is noticing how loved you are by the people that you think aren't loving you in that moment. And one last piece that is just a great tactical tool for couples who are in conflict. This has changed the game for Eben and I. When Eben's mad at me or I'm mad at him and we get mad, I will say, I'm angry. I'll state the feeling. I won't just go, what the fuck? Why didn't you? I'll say, I'm angry. And before I say anything else about why, I will say, I love you more than I'm angry. I love you more than I'm angry, but I'm really angry. And I need to resolve this issue. And something about hearing the person say they're angry, but they love you more than they're angry, lets their nervous system relax because most of our parents just got angry and did not say that. So what we felt is that they didn't love us anymore. Right.
Creates an instant bubble of safety, if you will, to where you don't have to, the hormones don't start pumping and the fight or flight response doesn't kick in.
Yeah, and you have more room to get, okay, so why are you angry? Because I know you love me more than you're angry, so now I have all the room in the world to get interested in why you're angry.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. I love that. I have not heard that one before.
Try it with your son, by the way.
Okay.
If ever you're upset, just say, I'm upset, I'm frustrated, but I love you more than I'm upset. And they'll relax.
Very cool. This has been amazing, Annie, as it always is, and I am so grateful to have your guidance and your wisdom on this topic, and very, very grateful that you've been willing to come on and share this with a ton of new people who are going to get to discover your gifts in this area. And how can they find out more about what you do? Do you offer anything out there where people can go learn from you? What do you have?
Well, my husband invented Move the Free line. So my entire website is lots of free videos, free teleclasses, every blog I've ever written. The last couple blogs I've written really dive deep into some of the theses that I brought up today. Mm-hmm. And it's all free on my website at AnnieLalla.com, ANNIELALLA.com. And if they sign up for my newsletter, which is always packed full of my latest epiphanies, you also get this pretty amazing gift. You get, first of all, a thesis on love and relationships and shame and how to deal with conflict that I've written as like a kind of manual. But you also get a really fun love test. It's 10 questions, one set for men and one set for women. When you read through these questions, you'll know definitively if you're in love with your partner or if they're in love with you.
Interesting.
I worked really hard on the questions. So I really trust that if you read through them, you'll know.
And when should someone apply these questions? How much of a foundation does, like, I don't think it would be fair to well, I don't know. You tell me. When is
honestly, you can read it right now, even if you're single, because it will help guide what you're looking for in true love relationship.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, awesome. So AnnieLalla.com, guys. And as you can see, she's amazing, one of the most brilliant women I've ever met. And Annie, thank you so much for being a part of my life and now being a part of Self-Made Man. And I know this is going to have a huge impact on a ton of people. And I would love for you guys to put your comments in the post below this episode. What did you learn? What did you like? How much of an impact do you think this information is going to have on you and your life and your relationships? And I'm sure Annie would love to see that feedback from you as well. So if you loved this and if you got as much value from it as I did, and I think you did, please share it with everybody that you know. This is such an important topic. And Annie, this was just a fantastic episode. I think it is right up there in the top of the top so far from what we've done. It's just been absolutely amazing. So thank you.
Great, Mike. Thank you so much. Enjoy.
Okay, take care.
Bye.